Welcome to Writers Not Writing. This used to be a show where I interviewed authors about the ways they procrastinated, and I'm sure we'll still have some of that. But in these times, I want to use this show to highlight artists who are using their voices to push back against fascism. Whether we're writing or not writing, we need to be defending one another. I'm Benjamin Gorman, your friendly author in exile, and the quiet guy behind the glass there is Doug the producer, who hitched a ride in my suitcase. I write novels and collections of poetry and stuff, and Doug does his best to make me sound better. Welcome to Writers Not Writing. You're going to enjoy today's show. And if you want a little more, become a patron of my Patreon, help me keep a roof over my head, and you'll get access to an ad-free version of the show with a bonus segment with each interviewee. Okay, here we go.
If I take my time.
Hail and well-met readers and reviewers. Welcome to Writers Not Writing. I am here today with AZ Louise. AZ Louise, they, them, is an author, poet, and artistic nuisance living in a cheese lover's paradise in Wisconsin. In their spare time, they are a collector of fountain pens, impractical hobbies, and useless facts, all of which they are guilty of inserting into their written works. They also write Kidlit under the mild-mannered alter ego LBC Williams. AZ, welcome to the show. I'm very glad to have you here today.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
So I have been excited to get to talk to you about, of all things, this is an area of your expertise, pro wrestling. Why pro wrestling? What got you into pro wrestling?
So a very common story for people my age is that they started watching wrestling during the Attitude Era in the late 90s and early 2000s. I saw China on my TV and my life was forever changed.
Yes.
I love her so much. But I fell off. I stopped watching when I went to college, which a lot of people do, and I came back to it I think in 2016, and now I won't shut up about it.
It is, I mean, I know a lot of storytellers who are really interested in it because it is absolutely, I don't want to spoil this for anybody. It's fictional and it is storytelling. Like that is this elaborate storytelling that goes on, watching a heel turn is instructive for us as authors. Like, how can you make a character turn into a villain?
And it was just WrestleMania weekend, so I'm still like riding the high of like the highest drama.
I went through this phase. So I'm older than you are. I was like the Hulk Hogan, the Iron Sheik era. They had a cartoon show on Saturday mornings. I was
Iron
totally,
Sheik.
yep, absolutely.
Love that man. Love
And
that
then
man.
I kind of, went away from it when I was like old enough to go, but wait, this isn't real. And then came back when I was like, and it's amazing. Like the fact that they don't break their necks is the athleticism is incredible to put on
Incredible
this
to watch.
show. Yeah. I mean, these people should be absolutely destroyed. And the fact that they can do this without killing themselves is pretty amazing.
If I took one bump, I would immediately perish. That would be the
Oh,
end of me. I'm
yeah.
made out of bubble gum and toothpicks. Like,
But I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, watching the acrobatics and they don't, you know, absolutely kill one another is pretty amazing. So what
yes,
was this last
our
weekend
queen
like?
Io Sky, the
Yeah.
genius of the sky, just
Oh,
retained her title, and seeing her just doing her flippy stuff is just, ooh, it's so good.
so what was this weekend's high for you?
Um, I think there was a triple threat between Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, and Io Sky, who are three of my absolute faves. And I'm almost always rooting for Rhea Ripley because she is a tall goth girlfriend, but she was disrespectful to Io, so Io had to win. We
Yeah.
can't be disrespectful to our queen, the genius of the sky.
I mean, yes, that's, yes, absolutely. So not to get too personal, but I'm imagining, how old were you when you first saw China?
Um, I must have been like 16.
Oh, okay. So you were at an age where you were like, who am I as a person? I'm seeing China and learning things about myself.
Learning so much about myself.
Yes, the whole story makes total sense.
It's absolutely a peak wrestling experience.
Yes, that's right. You are not the only one. I think there were a lot of people who saw China and went, I'm having feelings that
Oh,
I need to understand.
okay.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that's awesome. Well, not to bring the show down too much, but I want to ask you, living in this era we are living through, I feel obligated to ask authors right now, how have you been handling what you're seeing on the news every day? The kind of constant drumbeat that's been going on. How have you been weathering that?
Definitely like keeping up my little hobbies is very helpful. We are gardening for the first time ever this spring, so that is keeping me alive right now.
Yep.
It's amazing how much when you're just outside digging a hole, you don't worry about anything else.
Yeah.
But I do also find that supporting other people, like in my community, is really helping a lot right
Yep.
now. Especially because I'm somebody who deals with agoraphobia, so I don't get out very much. Um, so online community is really, really important to me, and especially the writing community is there's a lot of very marginalized people who need support, including me. And I feel like boosting people, mentoring, trading our skills is kind of like something that's really important because we do have important stories to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think this is good for, listeners, viewers to understand what are some ways that people should be showing support right now. Let's give them some, ideas about what they can do. I mean, one of the things I've been saying is buy books, buy,
Yeah.
like that's, it seems straightforward, but please go out there, find a non-binary author, find a trans author, and buy their book, rate it and review it, tell a friend. Like this is it, it's basic stuff, but it really matters right now.
Even just like retweeting like
Yes.
somebody's post about their book can be really helpful, or reskeeting because I'm not on Twitter
Yeah, yeah.
anymore. But
Yes.
sharing people's stuff if you can't afford to buy a book at the moment is really, really helpful.
Yep. If you've got a
Like
phone plan and you've got
I
an app, it costs you nothing extra. Share
yeah,
out.
I find that when I post about my books, the thing that helps me the most isn't my own post, it's other people sharing it.
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
And I also think like being in touch with your library really, really helps.
Yeah.
Because libraries are in serious need of support right now. And just by getting a library card and using your local library, I don't go into my local library, but I read on Libby. So if
Yeah.
you, and every time you, like, if you check out a writer's book, that is extremely helpful. Or if you request it, because that lets the library know, maybe we should buy this one. And then we get paid for our book.
Yep. Yep. It is. Libraries are not bad for authors. Libraries are good for authors. So, yes, check out that book. It helps. And also support that librarian. Like, librarians are an embattled part of the workforce right now. I feel so much sympathy for what they are dealing with. These are people with an incredible expertise. And instead of being viewed as experts, they're being viewed as enemies. And I'm like, these people are a resource for you. If, in fact, if you don't know a trans author, a queer author, a Black author that you're going, oh, who should I support? Contact your local librarian and say, I want to support more queer authors. I want to support more BIPOC authors. Who should I be reading? And that supports that librarian and supports that author. Maybe who's somebody that not everybody knows about that I should be reading? That's a really good thing to be doing right now.
And utilizing library services is also really good because if you're using the 3D printer, if you're using the computers, it means somebody is there. And that means that it's viable to continue to fund the library and have books there.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Well, in the mess of all of been going on, one of the challenges that I'm noticing that people are facing is the stories are coming at us so fast, and it's so much that stuff can get lost. I mean, I feel like already people have forgotten Signalgate, and I'm like, that would have been the end of any other administration, right? And already they just pile on all of these awful stories. So, what are some things that you are hoping people are not missing out on? That are some stories that are out there in the world.
So, one that affects me personally, because you can see my human body, is fat phobia has really been on the rise lately, for a variety of reasons. And that's kind of tied in with like another half of what I want to talk about. But fat phobia is something that people think of as like a fluffy subject, like, oh, we can tackle that later after the real problems are taken care of. But it overlaps with race, it overlaps with disability, it overlaps with like poverty. Like everybody is affected by this because there are fat people in every community. So if you see that going on, try to put a stop to it because it has gotten really dire, especially on like Instagram and TikTok at the moment. Like the
And
influencer culture has gotten really, really rough, re fat phobia. And
and
that leads to my second point, which is medical scams.
mm,
Because anytime that medical care gets more difficult to access, scams come up.
yeah,
And like for me, I'm autistic and I have ADHD, which means that RFK is talking some mess about me.
yeah,
Um, and whenever people are bringing up autism, scammers will rush
yeah,
to try and give parents cures to fix their kids.
yeah.
So those are two places where scams and various poisons are going to be coming out of the woodwork. So look out for that, especially if you have family members who might be vulnerable to those kinds of scams.
That was part of our reasoning for moving to Spain was, my wife's got ADHD. There are some countries where you can't get the medication you need. And understanding that without the medication, this is life-saving medication for folks who, if you've got ADHD, you can't function often without that medication, or at least it made a huge difference in her life. And so the threat of going to a country where that would not be accessible heightened the danger of staying in a country where that may no longer be accessible, which was an anxiety. I mean, you can imagine, like, that the
Yeah, it's so
fear.
scary.
Yeah. But to go back to your point about fat phobia, this is something I have to own. I slipped on this last week where I was, referring to Donald Trump, and I think a lot of people in their frustration then go to, comments about Trump's looks, comments about Trump's weight, comments about Melania's looks. And I try really hard to avoid all, like, people will be posting, I don't like this about him or about her or whatever. And I'm like, we don't need to comment on these people's bodies. There are plenty of other reasons to criticize them. And I own that I slept and I was like, this guy. And then I was like,
Yeah, and all of us are
I'm
guilty
playing
of
into
that
that,
because
right?
that's the culture we've grown up in.
I,
So it's like we're all occasionally guilty of it. And because I do have ADHD, I try not to talk about political stuff on my feed because I will say something silly because my mouth goes faster than my
mm,
brain does. So you might notice that my feed is pretty chill and not very much about that kind of stuff because I will say something really mean without
right.
meaning to.
Yeah.
So I just personally for me, I need to filter myself a lot
Right. But I think
because
also
I'm
being able to
chaotic.
take that feedback, when somebody goes, "Oh, that thing you just said was," because often people don't even know, "Oh, that thing you said was that term you used has a racial history that you don't know, or that term you use is fatphobic and you didn't even realize it, or it's ableist." So many words in the English language relate
It's
to conditions and we don't even
wild.
know. It's shocking how many, and so being able to then take that and go, oh, you're right. I didn't mean that.
Let me not. Let me not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are very few words you can use to criticize someone's intelligence, for example, that aren't rooted in ableism. Like, we just don't have a lot of words for that don't relate to a condition. And so,
Yeah.
being able to say, I'm not saying this person lacks the ability to speak. But, that
Yeah.
is a
Just
word that we use for both, which is really, unfortunate.
yeah, it's hard. So it's like your mama said, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
doesn't mean don't push back against people who are terrible. Just,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that is, I mean, isn't that interesting? Puts us kind of on the on the on the back heel to use a boxing metaphor. Like, but it means we are being very careful with our language against people who are absolutely not, who are willing to lie, who are willing to say whatever. And I think that's good. Like we should be more thoughtful about our language, but it does mean we're going to mess up sometimes too. Like,
yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you just have to, I think that just being like, you're being gross,
yeah.
you're being weird, and that's bad to say is kind
Yeah.
of like the best thing to do because when you argue with these people, you're giving their arguments credence. And
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
doing that.
and some of these folks, and this is something that took me far too long to learn, you don't know if they're true believers or they're trolls who just like, anger. And so if you get really angry, you're feeding the trolls, as the saying goes. And so figuring out, is this person interested in, I'll even say, do you consider yourself persuadable about this? And if a person says no, okay, then why am I going to feed you? Like you're
I
just, yeah. But that is challenging because we do have an obligation to protect people. I see somebody online who's going after an author, and I want to say, and I've found the better thing to do is to speak to the author and say, hey, I thank you for your writing. I appreciate what you are doing, rather than I'm going to try and get into a battle with the troll here. Like
That's
the
kind of
author,
similar to what I do because, like I said, I'm autistic. I'm bad in social situations, and I really can't tell the difference between a troll and a true believer. So it's better for me, for my mental health and for the sake of everybody else around me, to try to focus on positive stuff because if I get embroiled in something like that, it's just going to go bad because I just can't read those social cues.
oh well, and that's it's and that is not even your fault. There's no way to tell sometimes. Like
Yeah.
like which says something about the true believers. They sound just
Yeah.
like 14-year-olds in basements. Like if that's
Yeah. And
what your
it's like,
movement sounds like,
ooh, just
you
knowing
know,
your limits for this kind of thing is like really, really helpful.
yeah, right. So you've got the gardening, which I think is beautiful. Like that's a great way. Is there anything else that's been helping you to kind of, maintain your sanity through all this?
I tend to like go back to comfort viewing when I'm feeling overwhelmed. And right now I've been rewatching this YouTube channel called Clint's Reptiles.
I've never heard of this.
And this man is a zoologist and he's like a reptile educator and he does like summer camps and stuff. It's incredibly wholesome.
Yeah.
Um, but some of my favorite videos he does is he will go over the phylogeny of like an entire group of animals, which is sounds really boring, but I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
And he also rates pets um, on a little scale, which is like how easy are they to take care of, how handleable are they? And it's always really wholesome to like see my favorite animal and see what he thinks about them.
Yes. Have you ever come across one where you're like, I always thought this would be a great pet, and then he informs you, not so much.
The funniest one to me was dogs because I'm an animal lover. My first pet was actually a budgie, so I'm like a little bit of a weirdo. But
We had him as kids. Yeah, we had a couple.
his since he is primarily a reptile person, um he has a dog, but to him mammals are like incredibly high maintenance. They need a lot of attention, they need a lot of food, they need a lot of cleanup. Yeah, so to
They're
him it was
expensive.
like, yeah, he was like, actually a dog is like not the greatest pet, but it's the right pet for me because he's my best friend.
Yes. And I think recognizing that and then being able to transfer that to somebody else who's like, but I love my ferret. And I'm like, I think a ferret would not be for me, but they are actually cheaper than dogs.
Yeah, and
Like,
as someone who absolutely loves dogs and has had dogs, I'm in a place in my life where I don't super need a dog.
yeah, yeah.
Like I'm disabled. I can't be doing all this walks. Like
Oh, we just moved into a third floor walk up. and we have dogs. And so it
Oh
has
no.
become my wife's nearly full-time job taking these. She's like, they go out in the morning and then they go out in the evening, and generally they go to and there we have to go to a dog park. And so as we're waiting for our residency, so we can't work yet. And so her work
Oh,
almost is, these dogs are taking up an incredible amount of her time while I'm trying to do company stuff, and bless her for doing it. But gosh, yeah, dogs are a lot. Dogs take a lot
they're
of
a lot of
time.
work and I
Yeah.
love them so much. But yeah, I'm somewhere where I don't feel like I need a dog right
Yep.
now.
Yeah. No,
A
not
fish?
not everyone. Yeah, fish are wonderful. Well, and reptiles. I am a big turtle lover. Like I had turtles as kids, and I had a tortoise. I love my tortoise. And tortoises
Oh,
are very entertaining. I mean, they just kind of wander around the yard, and then so if you've got space for a tortoise, they're great. Turtles are, aquarium animals. They can be very happy in aquariums. And then, we had lizards because we lived in San Diego, and so, lizards, aquarium
I
animals.
love
So
them.
reptiles are pretty great. Yes, that's. But I will post a link to Clint's Reptile Room in the show notes. So folks, check that if you're needing some peace and quiet. Take AZ's advice. Watch Clint's Reptile Room. That's great.
There's I think it was Mother's Day, a Mother's Day special where he rated human children as a bit, and it was super, super cute. And his kids are adorable, and I just loved it.
Did he talk about which ones are high maintenance? Because I mean, talk about the most expensive thing that you could possibly take on in your life is certainly children.
Yeah, yeah, I think children were their lowest rated pet until they rated it might have been alligators.
Yes, yes. I mean, if
Because
you're trying to decide,
yeah, a child can't bite your hand off.
yeah,
I
that's
They
true.
really, really have that going for them.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
as a
that's
kidlit writer, I love kids, but
yeah. They're incredibly expensive. It's a fact. I've got a kid in college right now, and yeah, that's it's not cheap. Uh, wouldn't trade him for the world. Wouldn't trade him for an alligator. In fact, Noah, if you're watching this, I want this on the record. I would not trade you for an alligator ever. But college is expensive.
oh boy, it is.
Well, I have been excited to have you on because one of these new segments I've added to the show, so people keep coming back, is we're telling a story collaboratively. So this is a story about this 11-year-old protagonist, Zil Roth. Her father was conscripted, and she was left in the care of somebody else in her community who she found boring because she likes to be out in the woods and stuff. And this person was, trying to teach Zill some practical skills, tanning, leather,
Or
and that was very boring to her. So she decided to run away to go be with her aunt and grandmother, but it's on the other side of the country. And so she's now, first she snuck away with a merchant. She hid in a merchant's wagon and she got out of town. And then when they got into the next town, there was a kind of tinkerer who had an invention and was trying to get people interested in this invention, but only had a non-working prototype. And it almost led to a riot. And so they rescued this guy. So now they've got this guy with this non-working prototype of this lantern that's supposed to keep the terrors that come at night away. And then on their way out of that town, they were confronted by a competing inventor. And that inventor accused, let's see, Banel was the inventor's name, accused Banel of stealing a piece and wanted the invention. And they ended up in this circumstance where if either one of them took it, the other group wouldn't have it that night, and they were going to be out at night. So where we left off last week was they made camp together, and Zill, who's kind of sneaky and clever, took the lantern from everyone as they were getting the camp all made and hid it. And so now, and did reveal that she'd hidden it. So they know that she's aware where the lantern is, but what she actually did was bury it. And so they don't have it. They all agreed to go the traditional route, which is to light a fire, and the light of the fire will keep the terrors away rather than this lantern. And Banil knows that the prototype wouldn't have worked anyway. So Banil's actually okay with this solution, but Jesmar and the other inventor are very frustrated with Zill because they think she's hidden the thing that is going to keep the terrors away at night. And now we're to the point where they are all kind of uncomfortably bedding down for the night. So they have two wagons, and we haven't figured out their, kind of sleeping arrangements, and a fire to protect them, to provide the light, because the terrors don't like light. That's what keeps them away. And they're all there for the evening. And now, what happens next?
I think perhaps it starts to rain.
Oh. So we have another complication. They're dependent on a fire and it's starting to rain. It totally works. So they're in the plains and that's unusual for Zill. She's grown up in kind of the foothills and now she's entering the plains, which is the kind of center of the empire. And so she's not used to, rainstorms in the plains and it starts to rain. And what are they going to do?
So I think that the most important thing at this point is protect the fire, right?
Yeah.
So I think that those inventors are going to have to work together to
Ah.
create something that can protect the fire so they can all make it through the night.
And they have to be quick, right? I mean, they
Yes.
can't, there's no dilly-dallying. And they have, as far as supplies, Jesmar is the merchant. Jesmar is Zaman, these Zezem pronouns. So Jesmar would have some supplies. So they could maybe use Jesmar's supplies to build something quickly, hastily, that will protect that fire. So what do they do?
So I think that the first thing they would do is maybe look for something that is fireproof because that's like choice number one. So like maybe metal or um I'm trying to think of something else that might be fireproof
Well,
in a
one of the
merchant's.
ingredients, one of the materials that's really common in this world is leather, is Gaudal leather. It's like a creature that's like the the mammals in our world are reptiles in this world. So the cattle are like goat, cows, but reptiles. They're big. They're the size of cows, but they are
Little
reptiles.
friends.
Yes, and that's what a lot of the clothing and boots and that kind of stuff are made out of Gaudal leather. So what Jesmar sells is not finished goods, it's raw materials. So Jesmar would have unfinished leather, which could be something they could kind of, you
Nice,
know,
nice.
create and tarp over the fire and essentially be, I don't know leather well enough, but I would think they're smoking the leather. Like they're
They're just treating
treating the
it.
leather, right? Yeah. So they're treating this leather to try and protect this fire. And is it successful?
I think yes, but because it's a small space, now everybody is crammed in and they're a little bit uncomfortable with each other.
Yes, it creates quite a bit of tension. So we haven't in this story yet had a visitation by the actual terrors. And the terrors are these, monstrous characters that only come out at night. They hide in during the day and they sneak up on people and eat them when they're sleeping. The terrors don't want to fight with you. They would rather, but it means everybody has to design their homes around the idea that something could come in at night and try and eat you. And so, what do you think? Should this be the first time we get a sight of the terrors or no terrors? The terrors don't come every night. Like they're just around. Do they just, stay together and stay awake, or do we actually have a terror at this point?
I think it might be terror time. I think it's like
Okay.
deep enough into the story that like maybe we see some shadows moving around at the edge of the fire because it's shaded now, so it's a little bit less bright.
Right. Well, and they've got these two carts. And so if they've got the fire and they've got these two carts, there are areas where there is no light from the fire because of the carts, and they could hear, and maybe that's where we have not a full terror attack, just enough that we get a hint of. And this is really good for Zill too, because Zill has grown up as much as Zill likes to go out and, play in the woods by day with her father. He's protected her. Like she's never, fought off a terror at night. She's never been out at night. So maybe this is our hint that the terrors are real in a way that she's never been exposed to before. And that's
Oh
a
my
good place
god,
for
poor
us to stop.
baby.
Yes. So that's our to be continued is they hear the terrors in the shadows on
Ooh,
the edges of camp.
spooky.
Okay, good. Excellent. Well, thank you for that. We'll come back to that next week. So we're going to go to our commercial break, but when we come back, I'm going to ask you what you've been daydreaming about lately. Hey, readers and reviewers. I want to put out an all call for guests who are fighting back against fascism. If you know an author or artist of any kind who is using their art or their platform to push back, especially if they are doing so in an interesting way that deserves more attention and support, share this show with them and encourage them to email NotAPipePublishing at NotAPipePublishing@gmail.com, and we'll get them scheduled. And if you're looking for inspiring or practical ways you can push back, be sure to subscribe to the show so you catch all the great guests folks are going to recommend. See you here each week. In honor of Poetry Month, this week's Writers Not Writing is brought to you by Veronica González Arredondo's book, I Am Not That Body. This collection, with beautiful side-by-side translations by Alison A. DeFries, contains poems about femicide, immigration, extinction and survival, disappearing landscapes, displaced peoples, and the inhospitable climates, geographically and metaphorically, that remain in their wake. Veronica González Arredondo explores the arid desert ecosystems of Mexico with the beauty and talent that has made her such an esteemed award-winning poet in her home country. And thanks to Alison A. DeFries, it's now available to the English reading world as well. I Am Not That Body bears witness to the plague of gender violence in Mexico, sublime in its masterful use of religious imagery, metaphor, and concise, almost staccato lines. I Am Not That Body is a necessary and timely read for understanding the recent wave of protest against femicide in Mexico, writes Edwin Alanis Garcia, author of Galeria. Rarely has a poetry collection been dedicated to femicide in its many ugly shapes facing migrant women in their journey to reach the U.S.-Mexico border. Through haunting imagery and gripping lines, these poems render visible and audible the victims of femicide, invisibilized, silenced, but never erased from collective memory, writes Gada Murad. Get your copy wherever fine books are sold, and get 10% off your whole order at the NotAPipe Publishing store using the coupon code SHOWFAN.
You deserve a vacation.
How about a trip to a dude ranch on a colony planet?
Or a journey to a universe where wizards call lightning down from the sky and calm rumbling volcanoes?
Or a holiday tour of the major cities of Europe with vampires and werewolves and witches as guides.
Or maybe just a nice hot sudsy bath with a book of poetry that will make you cry and sigh and laugh.
We've got you covered.
A paperback will appear on your doorstep each month to whisk you away, and you'll return refreshed, enlightened, and ready to make the world we share a brighter place for everyone.
Or if you prefer, you can sign up for a quarterly subscription and get 4 YA titles, 4 adult titles, or 4 collections of poetry per year.
Plus, you'll get book club questions from the author before you start the book and an interview with the author afterwards.
So, if you are in a book group or want to start one, this is everything you need in a kit. Will we occasionally throw in some extra surprises just to say thank you to our members? Of course.
You can also give someone their very own membership with all of the rights and privileges pertaining thereto.
So, find a reward level that's right for you.
And share this with your friends.
Join the Indulge Your Shelf book club today. Your bookshelves deserve a little pampering. Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with AZ Louise. And AZ, what have you been daydreaming about lately?
I have been, as I mentioned earlier, really into gardening lately. I've been super hyper-focused on our garden and attracting like local fauna. So we don't have much for pollinators. So actually, I have some local Midwest pollinator seed mix sitting right here.
So what are you growing for your to attract your pollinators?
So this has like many different flowers in it, but there's like coneflower, black-eyed Susans, all kinds of beautiful, wonderful like perennials and annuals to attract pollinators to our backyard.
Yes,
because
in
we
the
did
Pacific
plant
Northwest,
apple
my
trees.
favorite was lavender. Lavender attracted
Oh,
a lot, and it smells good, but my son didn't like the smell. So the lavender was all at the backside of the garden. But
I love lavender.
yeah.
It reminds me of my mom. So whenever I smell it, I'm like, this is so calming and wonderful. It has mom energy.
Well, and I
But
don't
we
even
are
know if
hoping
lavender
to,
is native to Wisconsin. It's a big
I have
crop.
no
Like people,
idea.
grow lavender like crazy in the Pacific Northwest, but it may be invasive for all I know, like a lot of things that were
I have
brought
no
in.
idea.
Yeah. So yeah, so you're just doing the wildflowers thing. It's a mix.
Uh, yeah, and we planted some elderberries
Oh, fun. Yes,
um
that's a good
to
one.
attract birds because we love birds, but I'm also hoping to create some like little rock and log things in the backyard because I obviously I love snakes. I'm hoping to attract garter snakes to our garden
Yeah.
because they're the most wonderful creatures.
Yes, we used to have lots of garter snake visitors, but they did not get along with our last dog. She really
Oh,
loved, yeah, we had some bad experiences with finding half a snake.
oh
And
no.
Evie, yeah, Evie kind of looking guiltily like, what did I, So, but yes, garter snakes are great for gardens. And so just creating the hiding places for them, is that the
Yeah, yeah.
plan?
Apparently they like, like little log hidey holes, and they like it if you leave out rocks that get warm in the sun so they can bask.
Oh, so you're providing them kind of paradise, a little, hotel and place to
And they love eating like slugs and stuff, which is good for your garden.
yeah.
So they're like absolutely a little garden friend.
Yes. Yeah, that was slugs and snails were the bane. I could never get green peppers because the snails would destroy them right away. Like they were just like,
Out
"Ooh,
there
we
in
like
the
these."
Pacific Northwest, that's
Yeah.
like snail and slug city
Yep.
out there.
Yep. Oh, that was yeah, that was and it was the green pepper. The tomatoes kind of protected themselves, I think, but the green peppers and like habaneros, the really hot peppers do really well in the Pacific Northwest because nothing should eat them. I did I didn't realize the full extent of this until I was talking to a biologist who was like, "Oh yeah, the reason they are so hot is so that nothing with lips and a tongue, well, lips especially, will ever eat them, so that they will then be eaten exclusively by birds and spread." And so I now make fun of one of my friends who always, is eating the absolute hottest, like the Scoville rating, is off the charts. And I'm like, you realize biology has, evolution has tried to make that impossible. You're not a bird. You are not supposed to be eating these.
I love spicy food, so I'm that person. I'm like,
Yep.
pain. Actually, a fun fact about me is because I have had pet birds. Um, they love peppers, so I would give my little guy a mix that had dried peppers in it until one day I realized my face was burning, and it was because he was giving me little kisses with
Oh
his
yeah.
peppery mouth, and I was like, no more peppers for you, buddy. That hurts. That like
Yep.
really burns.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I've done the thing where, you're picking them or whatever and you don't pay attention and you rub an eye. Oh,
Oh, the
you do that
worst.
once.
I genuinely started wearing gloves
Yeah.
when I work with hot pepper because I've done that one too many times.
Now, do you make anything with your peppers? Have you done like jalapeno,
So my
salsa or
favorite
anything?
peppers are Scotch bonnets. Um, my grandma is Jamaican, so my favorite thing to make with habaneros is, or with Scotch bonnets is Jamaican food. But I can't get them at the store around here, so we are hoping to grow them eventually.
Yes, yes. When I moved to the Midwest, we moved from San Diego to Cincinnati, and we were struck by how mild, like not being able to find, and that has changed since I
Such a
lived
bummer
there.
because I can find habaneros almost everywhere I go,
Yeah,
but Scotch bonnets, the only place I've ever found fresh Scotch bonnets was when we lived in England because they have so many Caribbean folks there.
yep, yep. Well, and what we found in San Diego was the population changed. Literally, a lot more Latino folks moved to Cincinnati, and then we started to be able to find
On the good stuff.
flavorful food. Yeah, good food. So you need a more of a Jamaican population. What city are you in? You're in. Yeah, I know you're in Wisconsin, but where?
I'm in Janesville, which is like just north of the border with Illinois. I'm almost in Illinois.
Oh, okay, but not Chicago side.
Not Chicago side, but
Okay,
like it's Chicago's like a little way away from us.
yeah.
We actually used to live in Chicagoland.
So yeah, it's Chicagoland. You could find the spicy food. I bet you could find great Jamaican food in Chicago, but you're a
Yes.
ways. Yeah, that would be a long trip for good Jamaican food.
Yeah. So yeah, my Jamaican food happens in my kitchen.
Yeah. That's now I'm hungry for good Jamaican food.
It's the
That sounds
best.
fantastic.
It's the best food.
Oh, so good. Um, I wanted to ask you what's coming up for you, career-wise that our viewers should keep an ear out for.
So my mild manner alter ego has a big day coming up. My fantasy middle grade, Where There Be Monsters, comes out on the 6th of May. And it's about a girl who goes through an adventure in a multiverse of worlds full of monsters and mysteries.
Oh,
I'm super, super, super excited and nervous.
okay. As a non-kid lit reader, this sounds right up my alley. My next novel, which will come out this fall, I'm teasing this so folks are hearing this maybe for the first time. It's titled "You People Are Monsters." And so yeah, we should plan some kind of joint event because
Definitely
where the
100%.
sounds like something I would totally enjoy as an old man.
I I have not yet been able to talk about. There is a book two coming in that series next year. So definitely let's do a little something something together in this fall
Yes.
because that'll be the that'll be perfect timing for both of us.
Yes. Oh, that would be great. So yeah, so this comes out May 6th. This is very
Yes,
soon. That
so
is
soon.
exciting. So do you have any kind of launch event stuff planned?
Yeah, so if anybody is in Wisconsin, the launch event is going to be at Lake City Books in Madison on May 6th. Doors open at 6 p.m.
How fun will that be? Oh,
I'm
I
hyped.
would encourage people dress up, go as a monster. How much fun would that be? I have always like that would be the coolest, right? Or dress your
That's
kid up. That would
and
be the
here's the
best.
thing. It's also like very, very the aesthetic is very Victorian inspired. So I will be wearing a Victorian inspired outfit. So if anybody wants to show up in, their most Victorian inspired looks, definitely
Yes.
do that.
Oh, that sounds so great. So Where There Be Monsters, May 6th. And then what else is coming up?
I also am releasing paperbacks of my previously ebook only Shakespeare retellings. They're little tiny novelettes, and they're both tragedies. One is a post apocalyptic retelling of Macbeth, and the other is a post apocalyptic retelling of Othello. They take place in the same world, but they're not really sequels, they're just
Yeah.
friends.
I love this so much. One of my novels is I did a retelling of The Tempest as a
Yes.
science
Oh, I love
fiction
the
novel.
Tempest.
Yeah, well, and the sci-fi, so much fun. Like
Perfect. Perfection.
yeah, like and so I love that. I will check those out myself. That sounds absolutely right up my alley. And so, what is the universe for Othello like? What did you do for that one?
It's this spooky world where everything is like infected with crystal shards that make people become part of their environment. And
And
the sale will be over by the time this is posted, I think, but they are on sale for free right now because it is Shakespeare's birthday this week.
oh, how cool. Okay, well, if even if folks miss it, I'm willing to pay full bore for that because that sounds very,
They're
very cool.
they're really cheap too because they're little novelettes.
Yeah,
So they're
yeah.
just a little nibble, one sitting.
And what did you do for the difference for Othello that makes him an outsider?
Um, so because people get very ill from these horrible shards, um, at the beginning of the story, she is already sick.
Ah,
And so she is starting to be ostracized by her community for already being sick. And it gets
yes. And so,
horrible, just
and
horrible.
is she a general in the same way? Is she like a military hero?
She is, but she has been, she was once a sniper, but she has been basically forced out of that position because she's ill. And she is real bitter about it.
Yeah. That sounds excellent. I will have to absolutely
Deeply
have to check
stinky
that.
vibes because
Yeah,
they're tragedies. The third one
yeah.
will be coming out in probably October. I have not set
So
an exact
are
date.
you ready to share with people which play you're retelling?
Yeah, the last one is going to be Hamlet, and it is going to be told from the point of view of Ophelia, which I found Very difficult.
There's not a lot of Ophelia to work with. You get,
It's a
I mean,
real challenge.
yeah, you're having to, but it's freeing. I mean, you get to do whatever. Nobody can say that's not what Ophelia was like. Like we've got like 10 lines to work with. There's,
Yes.
like, yeah. Oh, that's
You
fun.
have to
Have
do
you
like
enjoyed the
chaos and
writing of that one?
tragedy.
Have you, was it fun to write or was it kind of, I mean, that's a
It
tough story because so much of it's
it's like
internal.
pulling teeth.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a hard one. Um,
Absolutely
but
brutal. The Macbeth one was like the fastest I've ever written anything in my
it's
life. It
plot,
was like
plot, plot,
magic.
right? Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man.
That one's plot, plot, plot. Whereas Hamlet's so interior that yeah, that would be tough.
I blame
Um,
my mom. She's the one who requested that Hamlet be next.
and you're like, no, oh yeah. But
Girl, you
I
better
think the
love this
Ophelia
one.
twist is the way to go. Like that's that'll be cool. And it does. It gives you a lot of freedom to go. Who is this person? She's
A
objectified in
menace.
like three different ways in the, like
Yeah.
she's just an obstacle and a goal and the
Like,
pretty
ooh.
princess to acquire like ugh. So giving her a making her a full human is a worthy endeavor. So with all this stuff coming out, I know it is hard to find time to read ourselves. What are you looking forward to checking out? What's in your TBR pile?
So it's massive. It's always, I
Hmm.
mean, obviously, it's always huge. But I'm in this really amazing middle grade debut group with some friends called Middle Grade Escapades. And of course, I buy all of their books. So those
Sure.
are what have been stacking up lately.
Yes.
And I'm very excited to read all of them, but I'm the most excited to read Ollie in Between by Jess Callens. It's about a little tween in middle school who's starting to ask some questions about gender.
Mm, yep.
And I'm just really, really hype. And I know that one's going to hit me where I live.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and those
That's a
books,
big feeling.
there's so much, Sturm and Drang. I was thinking about this last week. I'm part of a group called Publishing Professionals Against Book Bans. And, we're just getting started. We're catching up with Authors Against Book Bans in terms of our, what it is we want to accomplish. But one of the things we were tasked to kind of create in a subcommittee that I'm on is just a description, kind of what is a book ban. And so often they take the form of, we're protecting the children, right?
It's so gross.
Without any kind of reflection on there's a reason this book is really important. There's a kid who needs this book. Not only was there an author who felt this book was valuable, and many publishing professionals who thought this ought to get out into the world, there's a kid who needs this book. And that kind of book is going to be really important to somebody who is at that age and needs that. And if a parent is upset about what their kid was reading, I was like trying to figure out how to word this. And I was like, don't miss out on that incredibly valuable conversation with your child where you say, why do you want to read this book? Rather, and then storm off and yell at a school board. You've missed out as a parent. Like this is the chance to go, hey, my kid wants to read Ollie in Between. I'm about to learn something important about my kid. Like this is
Which,
a good,
what an honor, right?
right?
I
Ah,
have a little tiny nephew, and seeing a little guy experience the world for the first time is like the most wonderful thing that like you can do. It's
yeah.
amazing. I love being with him and seeing little videos of him. It just brings me such joy. And the thought of making it harder for a kid to understand and learn new things about their world is like devastating to
Right?
me.
It is wild
Like,
to me. Like, and now that my kid is older, I've got the perspective of, I want to say to all parents, you will go through years where you're going, I wish my kid would talk to me more. So don't, when you get in the car and you say, how was school today? Fine. What'd you learn? Nothing. Okay, that's not true.
teen me is feeling very roasted by
Yes.
this.
So well you can talk with your kid. Don't miss those chances. Protecting the kids is missing your opportunity to get to know your child. Like,
Yeah, and like when I wrote Where There Be Monsters, one of the themes is that she is quite sheltered, and has to learn all these new, very scary things about the world. And it's just such a wonderful thing to be able to help someone understand something about the world or about themselves. And that's like kind of why I do all this.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
And so when I see people who are mad about a book for kids existing, I'm like, oh, you just don't understand what a book is for. It's a
Right.
window into not just other people's lives, but it can be a window into your own life, and it can be a complete surprise that it's a window into your own life. You know, going back to WWE, I saw China for the first time.
Yep. Well, but I mean, I want to encourage every listener out there, viewer out there who has a child, try this as an experiment. Go out and buy two copies of Where There Be Monsters. Give one to your kid and keep one for yourself and read it. And then talk with your child about what they're reading. Because your kid's going to go, oh, I learned this thing about the world. And now you, as a parent, are getting to have that conversation. So get yourself two copies and read with your kid, or just read with your kid. That's wonderful. Like, and if you just want to get one and read out loud to your kid because you've got the time and you're both, connected in the time scheduling wise, lovely. But if not, get them a copy, get yourself a copy, read both, and talk with your child about their books. It's so
There
valuable.
is there is also an audiobook, and the voice actress for the audiobook is incredible.
Okay, so I know this wasn't in the plan, but I want to ask you about this. So I have had this experience where I got a very, very, just a wonderful narrator for my book, and I got to listen to somebody else read it. And so tell everyone what that's like the first time you hear your story read to you.
I was shook.
Right?
It's it's so strange, but also really, really gratifying. Like, especially because this artist is has such a childlike wonder in her
Oh,
voice. And so hearing the words that I've read dozens, if not hundreds
right.
of times that
Oh,
like don't
yeah.
mean anything anymore, hearing it read with that childhood wonder and whimsy is like it's a whole new story that I've never even heard before. It's amazing.
Yes, my YA novel, Corporate High School, the protagonist is 17 years old, female, black. Like when I do readings, I don't do from that book because I can't read her, right? And so I hired this phenomenal narrator, younger woman, not 17. She's, in her 20s, but she captured the voice. And so I'm listening to this now being read, and she got the voice. Like she got it right. You know what I mean? Like the way it sounded in my head.
Wow,
And
that's
there was,
her.
yes, and there was this scene where it brought me to tears. And then I had to remember, oh, I wrote this. She took it to another level, and it was like, oh, this is what a reader would hear in their head. She's getting it right, and it was so gratifying. So if folks out there, if you can
Wonderful.
find a voiceover narrator who knows what they're doing, who can get the character right, it can make such a huge difference. And support those folks. Audiobooks are legit. That is reading. That is another way of reading a
Yes,
text.
I will die on that
Yep.
hill. An
Yes.
audiobook is a book.
It still requires, as I used to be a high school English teacher, and I would tell my students, it still requires skills to read an audiobook. You're still analyzing plot, you're still analyzing character. These are legitimate skills, and it's more or less difficult for some people. Like that's legit. Some people read a written text, and some people listen to an audiobook. And whenever anybody's like, that's not reading, I'm like, really? You're going to go out there on that limb and say that to people who are visually impaired? You're going to say that they've never read books? Really? Like, it totally counts.
Yeah, like I have a friend who has chronic migraines, and
Yeah,
their favorite way to enjoy books is audiobooks because it doesn't hurt their head and they
right.
can lie still and listen. And that's a wonderful way to pass the time when you're feeling incredibly ill.
Yes. Oh, totally legitimate. Yeah. And for that person to not be able to say, I read this book, like absolutely you read this book. You had a headache and you lay down and you read that book. That's what you did.
It
Like
has the
that's
word book in it.
right. Yes. Oh, that's totally agree. But that is very cool. So how did that process go of getting that audio made? Because that's not cheap, that's challenging.
So actually, this is a very weird book because I got this job through a packager. So sometimes things just happen. Like my cover, just one day I had a cover
Yeah.
and it was amazing. It was a perfect cover and I was over the moon. And then other times I get to give more feedback. And I think that's how it is kind of across the board, especially with like a big five.
Yeah.
Where like sometimes stuff just happens and sometimes, but this time I was lucky enough to be able to give feedback on voice actresses. The audiobook division sent me a few different samples and was like, hey, which one of these is your fave? So I like ranked my top three, and all of them were so skilled.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I chose my top choice because that childlike wonder,
Yeah.
it filled, and especially because since this character is sort of sheltered, this sort of childlike innocence was really, really there. It was just, oof, my
Yeah.
heart.
Oh, that is so cool. Okay, well, so now I've given everybody the advice to go buy two copies. You can get one of them on
Thank
audiobook. You
you.
can listen to the book. Your kid can read the book, or vice versa. It does not matter. And then talk about the book.
It is almost summer, so if you go on a summer road trip with your family, just pop that on in the car.
Yes, yes, which is good parenting because you're also training your kid that in the future, long road trips are great times to listen to audiobooks. That's make that normalize that. Oh, that's great. So, AZ, who would be a good person for me to have on this show as a guest?
I extremely need to tell you about my friend Jessica Lewis. She writes all kinds of amazing stuff. She writes speculative, she writes contemporary, she writes middle grade. She has a middle grade pen name. She's my one of my absolute best friends in the whole world. So I'm obviously very biased, but her book, Nav's Ultimate Guide to Falling in Love, is coming out on the 29th.
Ah,
And this book is the absolute cutest sapphic YA romance that I have ever read. I was kicking my feet and giggling. I cried at the end. It's incredible. So I absolutely must recommend that you speak to Jessica, who is also
yes.
just a wonderful character.
Yes, well, we just published a book that's YA sapphic romance, and the love story is so like it's heartwarming, but also like hilarious. Like this character is like a total badass, like super capable, and then whenever the girl that she's interested in is in the room, she can't like find the words, and every scene is gold. Like it's so great. So yes, I will absolutely reach out. So Jessica Lewis, that sounds. And I guess I got to get her on soon because, this one is hitting the world right now. That's very cool.
I'm so excited for this book to be out in the world. Oh, and there's a really good dog. Something very important that you have to know about Jessica is that there is always a dog, and sometimes the dog is really messed up, and sometimes the dog is just the goodest boy. This is a goodest boy dog because
Okay. Okay. Good.
she does write a lot of horror. So if you want a messed
Yes.
up dog,
The
check out her
Cujo
horror.
stories.
Yeah, she
Okay.
has some real messed up dogs.
Yes. I like the good dog story. I mean, I certainly could enjoy a messed up dog story, but there is something that's, very heartwarming about the good boy in
He's a
there.
very good boy.
Well, there's some folks I have to thank before we get to our ending. Thanks to the artist Max Oakland, who reached out and provided one of his songs for our intro song. Provided the song "I Prefer the Dusk." Let Max know you like it by following him on Twitter at Max Oakland with three Ds. And thanks to the author Stephen E. Scribner, who wrote the Taun Fantasy series. He makes music under the name S. Eric Scribner and donated the song "A Poem" for our ad break. So thanks to Stephen Scribner for that. And if you make music and you'd like your song used on the show, I'd love to highlight a listener's work like Max's or Steven's song. So email me about that. Thanks, as always, to Doug, the producer, for making the show sound good and taking the blame when it doesn't. And I cannot forget to mention Writers Not Writing is a production of NotAPipePublishing. So please go to NotAPipePublishing.com, check out the amazing books written by writers who didn't procrastinate too much. If you liked the show, rate it and review it wherever you found it. Please check out AZ's new book that is coming out, as well as what's if they get this before it drops, what's something they should go grab to get a good representation of your work?
So I think that kind of the peak AZ book is probably Off-Time Jive. It's a fantasy noir mystery type of thing set in the Harlem Renaissance.
Ah,
Um, it kind of embodies my weird and eclectic taste.
okay. So what's the title again?
Off-Time Jive.
Off-Time Jive. Okay, so get a copy of Off-Time Jive, and then what I want you to do is tell a friend about it and rate it or review it. It does not take too long to just click on the fifth star and say, "This was wonderful. I had a ton of fun reading it." Like, make AZ's day. Please rate and review. Same thing with this show. Click on that little thumbs up. I appreciate that. I've been telling everybody as my kind of sign off, please remember all writing is political. Speaking is political, and not writing or speaking is also political because silence maintains the status quo. So please use your voice to make the world a better place. And AZ, you get the last word. What's your advice for everybody for this week?
Nothing you learn is ever wasted. If you write a book and it doesn't sell, you've learned something from it. Any experience in your life that you have learned something from has not been wasted.
Here's a tiny bit of our bonus segment just for supporters of the Patreon. So what kind of podcasts are your go-tos? Is it like true crime?
Oh, I have to tell you about my absolute favorite podcast. It is called Behind the Bastards, and it is a history podcast about the absolute worst people who have ever lived.
Oh,
And
who does that one?
I mentioned his name is Robert Evans.
I think I may subscribe to his Substack.
Yeah, and he was formerly a writer at Cracked, and because I am an elder millennial, I spent a lot of time on there. So I always follow like people who used to work on that site. But yeah, like recently they did one about the guy who basically invented like medical autism scams on the industrial scale.
Oh my God. Oh, you mean the guy who came out with the fake study that autism was?
No. They've done him before too,
He's
though.
terrible.
It was a guy who had like a like residential school for autistic kids, but back in like the 50s, that didn't necessarily mean what it meant now, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
Really, really bad. But I would say that my favorite extremely long form episodes from them are the L. Ron Hubbard episodes because those are fascinating.
Wild. So crazy. Like the stuff you're like, really? Oh yeah, that I will absolutely check that out because that
Probably
stuff is
once a
fascinating.
year I re-listen to those episodes, and that's the one I was listening to. So obviously I have all this hair. It takes me about an hour and a half to wash and dry my hair. So I need something to entertain me. And that is what I was listening to this Sunday while I was doing my hair wash.
Okay, so we should put a link in the show notes. I know it's really unprofessional and bad form of me and like self-defeating to put links to other podcasts in my podcast. I'm like, hey, go listen to this other, but that one I will be checking out
Really
myself.
good.
So Behind the Bastards, the L. Ron Hubbard episodes.
Chaos, just pure chaos. But maybe make sure you're in the mood to hear about a terrible guy.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like they'll do one about like a Nazi, and I'm like, I'm gonna listen to that at a different time when it's not gonna ruin my day.
Yep. Maybe not today.
But because I am obsessed with scammers, like one of my special interests is like grifts and scams, especially medical grifts and scams. Yeah. That podcast I could listen to on repeat forever.
Have you ever listened to Sawbones?
Yes, I love Sawbones.
I have seen them live. I love the two of them. They're so great. So yes, folks,
I love
Sawbones
that show.
is a comedian, and his wife's a doctor, a medical doctor. She's very smart, very funny.
I love Dr. Sydney.
Yep, and they are so great. And so yes, check that show out too.
If you love a scam, they will tell you about a scammer.
Yes.